So the central banks are going to compete at payments level. So that's probably the end of stablecoins. And I think the central banks will force those out of the system. But Bitcoin as a pristine reserve asset is something different. It's like collateral for a new system, and I think other governments will begin to adopt it. Central bank digital currencies are the central banks acknowledging that Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies have changed the world. As the market cap, the value of Bitcoin goes up, it forces the banks, the pension plans, the sovereign wealth funds, the family offices, the asset management firms to get involved. So you might not know, but you will end up participating in this through different mechanisms. It may eventually be in your pension plan, in your 401k, you just don't know it yet. So the financialization of Bitcoin and the acceptance is happening. It doesn't require every individual to understand it. Like, you and I don't know how Google works, but we use it. We don't need to understand this stuff. But if you just accept that there is a whole new investment world that has massive potential upside, but is still quite risky, well, certainly if you're younger, you might take that bet. Because what are you going to do? Try and buy record expensive housing? Well, people are now because they've managed to borrow money, but it's hard. It's the opportunity. And we've seen that last year, 2020, the millennials got financialized because they got given stimulus checks and they thought, well, this $1,200 is worth nothing to me. What's it going to do? And I'm at home, so I'm going to trade it. And it just happened like magic.
Yeah.
People opened brokerage accounts in their millions and started learning how to trade. Because I said a while ago, they needed everybody who was under the age of kind of 35, under the age of 40, needed something to participate in with their savings. Where were they going to make their retirement money from? And here it is. It's on a plate, the biggest thing ever. And the crypto market currently is only worth $2 trillion, which is a lot. But the global equity market's 100 trillion. The global bond market's 100 and something trillion. So it could still go up 50 or 100 times from here over the next 10 years to catch up. It's also the fastest growing in market cap asset in all recorded history, the largest price appreciation of any asset class in all recorded history. I mean, if you want an opportunity and you don't mind taking a bit of risk, this is the biggest one you're ever going to be given. It's a whole new system being built in front of your eyes. Well, on average, it's gained 213% a year since inception. I mean, literally nothing has ever looked like this. And why is that? Because it's built on network effects. The more people that come into this network of money, the more use cases that get created, the more valuable that network becomes. So it goes up in an exponential way. So the central banks are going to compete at payments level. So that's probably the end of stablecoins. And I think the central banks will force those out of the system. But Bitcoin as a pristine reserve asset is something different. It's like collateral for a new system, and I think other governments will begin to adopt it. Many people suggest to me, well, the governments are going to ban Bitcoin. Well, at 200 billion, they don't care. Tap me on the shoulder when it's at $10 trillion, we'll talk again. So there's plenty of upside to play for before it starts to become something we need to worry about. They probably will give it a go. They've tried to ban gold. Last thing I've checked, it's been working for about 6 millennia as a currency, so it didn't really work, did it? And in this world of a distributed ledger, which is owned by everybody and owned by nobody, there's almost no chance, unless you shut down the internet entirely, to get rid of Bitcoin. It's impossible. It's a cockroach in finance, something you can never kill. And you see, that is its power, and that's what makes it so incredible. That's what makes it such a great reserve asset, and this very hardness of it. In my work on Bitcoin and understanding how to value cryptocurrencies, I realized that how you value them is Metcalfe's law, which is network adoption.
The number of people who join the network and the number of connections they have with each other is the value of the network. And we can understand that from Facebook, mobile phone networks, Google, all of these things. And that was true of Bitcoin, and it was a network of money. So it was going to be worth a lot of money.
You see, the news is starting to come out that central banks are going to adopt digital currencies. If you remember, this started getting floated by, I think Facebook Libra was one of the first. They came up with this idea of creating a global basket of currencies that were digital, and they would have this foundation in Switzerland, and that global basket would be a new world currency which could be used for the internet to interact on. The central banks looked at that and said, no, you're not doing this, because this really is redefining the rules of currency. And what you're going to create, it was basically a stable coin, but what you're going to create is something that's out of our control. Everything that has a value, and even things you don't understand have a value, are going to be exchanged digitally without necessarily a bank being in the middle. So that may be how you pay for things on the internet, how you earn money, how you lend out your time for work, how you earn a living, how you sell some of the rights that you have, your intellectual property rights, or even maybe you're a student and maybe you want to give up some share of your future earnings to pay off your university debts. Or there's so many things that are going to be changed by this.
And what we're going into a period, and Bitcoin is one of those assets, but we're actually going to a period we're about to see the largest adoption of technology in all recorded history, probably in a 10-year period. Already, Bitcoin is the fastest adoption of any technology in history. So the internet grew at 63% of a year at its first 10 years. Bitcoin's been growing at 113% a year. It's double the speed of the internet. We've never seen anything like it. Hence why the price always looks like it's in a bubble. But if you embrace the technology, you realize that things with exponential upsides are incredibly rewarding to invest in. And so as a macro guy, my job is to look at risk reward. So the risk reward for me was make a bit of money in a bull market and make 100% return in a bear market. And that was, good use of options, understanding how bond markets work.
Central bank digital currencies are the central banks acknowledging that Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies have changed the world. And it's a much better way of running a currency system, payment system, infrastructure system, settlement system, custody system. So they're saying, fine, let's do this for the money system. And they kind of learned this over this pandemic. It's very hard to get money into people's hands directly. So if we've got interest rates at zero, we need to figure out a way of having monetary policy that works. Hence central bank digital currencies that will work in the modern digital era. Where they go, who knows? What they use them for, who knows? How they can use them to maybe incentivize you to become a saver and me to become a spender, they can do that. They can individualize it because smart contracts. I think Bitcoin works on a number of levels, and I'm not going to go into it now because there's plenty of pieces from me on why I think Bitcoin is a reserve asset and probably the world's most pristine reserve asset. It's the only hard asset that has a fixed supply that eventually runs out, and demand is increasing. And as the world is turning towards Bitcoin and its price goes up, its market cap is only 200 billion. It's noise right now. It's like a mid-cap S&P stock. But that's where it's headed, because for this modern digital world, it is the payment system that we all want. But it's also, more importantly, it's the store of value we need.